The envelope sat on the desk like a time bomb. No return address. Just a single line scrawled in black ink across the front. Wichita Police Department. Inside was a floppy disk, a few sheets of paper, and a chill that would soon crawl through the heart of Kansas. The man who'd haunted Wichita for 3 decades was reaching out again. The BTK Killer. Bind, torture, kill. Was back, and he was about to make the mistake that would finally end his reign of terror. It was February 2005, and Detective Ken Landwehr had seen more horrors than most men could handle. But nothing matched the quiet menace of BTK. For years, the killer had disappeared, vanished into the shadows after his string of brutal murders in the 1970s and 80s. He was a ghost story parents whispered to their kids. Lock your doors, don't talk to strangers, or BTK will come. Then, out of nowhere, he returned. Not to kill, but to talk. BTK had always craved control. It wasn't enough for him to take lives. He wanted to be remembered. To him, murder was performance art. Every crime scene was a message, every detail, a signature. And now, he was writing again. Letters sent to the media, to police, to random people he thought were worthy of his game. In one of those letters, he taunted police. Can I communicate with floppy and not be traced to a computer? Be honest. It sounded like a challenge. It was. When detectives found that message, they knew they had him hooked. Landwehr instructed the department's tech team to play along. Yes, they replied through the media, floppies are safe. It was a trap. 2 weeks later, a small purple floppy disk arrived at a local TV station, Cake TV. Inside was a single file, a Word document titled Test A. RTF. It seemed harmless. But when the FBI's forensic lab examined it, they found something BTK didn't expect. Hidden metadata. A single word stood out. Christ Lutheran Church. And a name. Dennis. The lab tech stared at the screen. For 30 years, BTK had been nothing but a shadow, a faceless terror who left bound bodies and cryptic poems. But now there was a name. Dennis. They traced the metadata to a computer at Christ Lutheran Church in Wichita. The man who used it was Dennis Rader, a mild-mannered compliance officer, a family man, and the church council president. To everyone who knew him, he was polite, ordinary, forgettable. But to investigators, he was suddenly the most interesting man in Kansas. The police needed proof, something undeniable. They obtained a warrant to test Rader's daughter's pap smear sample, stored at a local medical facility. The DNA from that sample was compared to DNA collected from a 1974 crime scene, the Otero family murders, BTK's first victims. The results came back clear. It was a familial match. BTK had a face. It all began on January 15, 1974, inside a quiet home on Edgemore Street. 4 members of the Otero family, Joseph, his wife Julie, and their 2 young children, Josephine and Joseph Jr., were found bound, strangled, and lifeless. The crime was methodical, ritualistic. Whoever did this had taken time. For months, Wichita police were baffled. There were no fingerprints, no forced entry, no clear motive. The killer had left nothing, except for the sense that he'd enjoyed it. Then came the letter, typed on a sheet of paper and placed inside a library book left in a public phone booth. The message was cold and confident. Those 3 guys you have in custody are just talking to get publicity. The code words for me will be, bind them, torture them, kill them, BTK. The name stuck. Through the late 1970s, Rader killed again and again. Shirley Vian, Nancy Fox, Maureen Hedge. Each murder followed the same ritual. Binding, torture, strangulation. Between crimes, he'd vanish into suburban life, blending into the very community he terrorized. He even joined the local city council and became known for citing neighbors over lawn violations. What no one knew was that the same man writing polite letters about property maintenance was also crafting disturbing poems about his victims. In 1978, BTK sent a chilling letter to Cake TV declaring, "How many do I have to kill before I get a name in the paper or some national recognition?" The words revealed his obsession. Fame. He wanted to be studied, feared, immortalized. But by the 1990s, when the media stopped mentioning him, Rader faded from view. He had stopped killing, but he never stopped craving attention. Fast forward to 2004. Wichita was marking the 30th anniversary of the Otero murders. Newspapers ran retrospectives. Crime shows revisited the case. For Rader, it was too much to resist. He couldn't stand being forgotten. The first new package arrived at the Wichita Eagle newspaper. It contained photographs, a doll bound in ropes, and a photocopy of a driver's license belonging to one of his victims. The message was clear. BTK was still alive. Detective Landwehr reopened the old files. "He's trying to talk again," he said to his team. "Let's make sure he keeps talking." Over the next months, BTK sent postcards, cereal boxes with clues, and letters that mocked police for their failures. Each message was a step closer to his undoing. The killer who once vanished into silence had become addicted to being heard. When the floppy disk arrived, the trap was set. After the metadata pointed to Christ Lutheran Church, detectives quietly surveilled Rader's home. They followed him to work, to church, to his daughter's house. Every movement was documented. Every moment, a waiting game. On February 25, 2005, as Rader drove home for lunch, a convoy of unmarked cars surrounded his vehicle. "Mr. Rader," an officer said, "you're under arrest." He didn't fight. He didn't panic. He simply looked up and asked, "What's this about?" When detectives told him it was about BTK, a small smile crossed his face. "Oh," he said, "I guess you got me." Inside the interrogation room, Rader was calm, almost polite. He spoke for 30 hours over several days, describing each murder in chilling detail, the bindings, the fantasies, the projects, as he called them. He showed no emotion. Detective Landwehr later said, "He wanted to be remembered as a craftsman of murder." Rader explained that his killings were driven by what he called Factor X, a dark compulsion he claimed was beyond his control. He described how he stalked victims, planned their murders, and relived them through photos and notes. "I had to do it," he said. "It became part of me." At his sentencing, Rader stood before the court and recounted each killing, as if reading from a journal. The families wept, reporters sat frozen, and Rader, dressed neatly, speaking clearly, listed the names of the dead like items in a checklist. He received 10 consecutive life sentences without parole. In the years since, criminologists have studied Dennis Rader's psyche. How a man could live such a normal, structured life while harboring such darkness. His case became a study in the banality of evil. The idea that monsters don't always hide in shadows. Sometimes they sit beside us in church. What ultimately brought him down wasn't police intuition, new technology, or divine intervention. It was his arrogance. The same pride that drove him to kill also drove him to write. He couldn't resist leaving one more mark on the world, one more message to prove he was still there. In the end, the letters that had once made him infamous became the very thing that exposed him. As Detective Landwehr later said, "He handed us the key himself. We just had to open the door." Today, the story of the BTK Killer stands as a reminder that evil can hide behind the most ordinary faces. A husband, a father, a neighbor. And sometimes it's not silence that betrays a killer. It's the need to be heard.